Most complete. Did you hear that? Let's see. Broadcast approach. Nope. I'm lip reading. Leave computer. Let's start all over again. Hang on.
So I wonder if there's something wrong.
I can hear you now.
I haven't got my headphones on, so I don't know if that's an issue.
Yeah, because I kept on hearing little clicks as the, you were trying to plug in.
All right, let me try one more time. If not, I'll go with that.
Yeah, well, without it, it's fine.
You can hear me fine?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You might just hear like cockerels and dogs in the back.
Yeah, I heard a few crickets, yeah. Oh my gosh. So how are you doing, girl?
I am great. How are you?
I'm all right, love. I'm all right. Feeling a little sleepy because we've had Easter bank holiday. And like I just didn't want to wake up this morning, but I had a 9:30 coaching session with someone. So boy, I had to get up.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm all right now, but it's kind of getting near to lunchtime now. For you, it must be brekkie time.
It is, yeah, 8, just literally just gone 8 o'clock. So.
Yeah. Wow.
Time for me.
Good. All right. Well, I'm not going to sort of draw this out any longer than it needs to be, Nadine. We're I mean, essentially just going to have a conversation, and I guess you may not have heard my other episodes.
I actually listened to the one on intersectionality.
Oh, you did? Okay. Wow. Okay. God, that was one of probably the highbrow ones. But anyway, yeah, most of the episodes are really conversations with people in our sector, although I've also spoken to people who are sort of therapists and stuff like that, but I'm not really keeping it so tight. I just want to hear people's journeys, about their journeys, and I think a lot of students are very interested. Some of my colleagues obviously are also interested, so it's just nice to have a conversation with people. And in a way, part of it's about promoting what we do in terms of social work, but it's also, some of the less negative aspects of the work as well. So I kind of encourage people to be sort of honest about, their journeys and what were some of the highs and lows and what have you. So that's essentially what we're going to do.
Cool.
And I mean, sometimes people I speak to, they've got things coming up. Like, when I spoke to Claudia, she had, she just written this book, and and I think they were going to have a launch. So if there's anything like that you want to kind of promote, or you want to invite people to follow you and follow your journey, or any of the other organizations you support, we can absolutely do that as well.
Okay, sounds good.
So I'm going to record, and then I'll have to edit it afterwards, because all that diatribe I've just been blabbing on about, it's on the thing. So I'm going to cut all that out. Okay. And, let's just try to have a kind of a conversation. But if there are any bits that you perhaps don't want on it or whatever, just let me know, or, you know what I mean? And we can kind of doctor it all up.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. Any questions?
Oh, we're good to go.
Wonderful. All right, let me put the elder. God, this thing works. Here we go. All right. So I'm recording it on Zoom. Because the other thing that I generally like to do, if people are all right, is I put it on my YouTube channel as well.
Yeah.
So you're all right with that? Cool.
Yeah, fine.
All right, my dear. 3, 2, 1.
At least it looks half decent.
Well, it was so funny because I was interviewing someone the other day, and she said, "Oh no, please don't put it on YouTube. I haven't got any lipstick on." I thought, give me a break. I won't tell you who said it, but Jesus. So I just did the audio, and I didn't do the visual. So that's all right. People have the choice, It's up to them. All right, 3, 2, 1. Welcome, Nadine. How are you, my dear?
I am great this morning. And yourself?
I am fine. As I said to you earlier, a little sleepy, just coming out of a bank holiday. And did a lot of walking this weekend with my son. So he just totally wore me out. But yeah, fabulous. Happy to be here and happy to be in one piece, to be honest.
Amazing.
So basically, Nadine, I just really want us to have a chat about, what you're doing. The other day, I saw you on another kind of podcast. Well, it's not really it's a vlog. I think this lady, she does a vlog. She talks to people who kind of returned to the Caribbean. And I said, I know that woman. I know her. We used to work together. So it was so nice seeing you in that other kind of context, and it just shows you how small the world is. So I thought, let me invite you and let's have a chat about how things have been with you and what you're doing now. You and I worked together many years ago. We were doing different things, and we can probably chat about that a little bit. But let's start with introductions and tell us about who Nadine Boyne is and what you're up to. Where did it all start?
Sure. So my name is Nadine Boyne. I am a social worker by profession, qualified over 10 years, but working in children's social care for about 20. I know I don't. About 20 or so years.
Young as anything, lady.
What you'll see on my social media is that I say that I'm a social worker, I am a development coach, and I am a human. Because certainly in the latter part of my career, not that it's coming to an end or anything, but certainly in the more recent years, especially around the pandemic, 2020, that kind of swear word that people want to associate with that year where we were just thrown into this just big frenzy.
Yes.
I went through lots of self-reflections. I started that journey a bit earlier, but certainly that year was like a really explosive year for me, personally and also professionally, just thinking about where I wanted to go.
Sure.
So yes, that's why I now say I'm a social worker, I am a development coach, and I am a human. So most of my career so far in social work has been it's been operational. Mostly in the front door. So I was very much a assessment stroke MASH social worker, then manager. Did a bit of long-term safeguarding, just kind of working out where I fit in social work. What areas was great for me, what not so much. I really felt like I now feel like, in hindsight and reviewing, I feel like I'm very much more a short-term social worker than a longer-term social worker. So I like the fast pace of assessments and MASH, and I like to kind of almost just get in and get out really quickly.
Sure.
So I think that going and doing different roles in different parts of the journey for a child, I found really valuable. So it helped me to understand where I preferred to be. And then
can I just pause you for a minute there, because in a way I'm thinking, a number of people who listen to this podcast are sort of new to the work, newly qualified, and what you've just described there is a bit of a situation whereby you've worked out what was best for you. And what you're also sharing is that you went through various things to get to that point. I mean, I know that you would have had some contact with social work students in the past. What sort of advice would you give people about that part of your journey? Is it something that you do need to go through a process to sort of establish what's right for you, or do you, in your experience, do people kind of know straight out off the bat what it is they want to do? How would you sort of advise a social worker or a new social worker about that aspect?
Sure. I am a practice educator. I have also overseen a professional development role in a number of authorities as well. So I'm very familiar with supporting the journeys of new social workers and those that through all the different routes, be it traditional or one of the fast track ones. So my advice would be to start, obviously.
That help, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Right. See if you can get, and I know it's university dependent, but just to really contrast in placements where possible, which I know is not really within the trainees scope or
control,
control, that's the word. But definitely when you're starting out, to think about what your strengths are. So I'm actually currently writing a book specifically for new and student social workers. Okay. And it's less about the actual work, and it's more about them as an individual, as a human. Because what I find is that we are, and I'm going to say the general we in terms of social workers, we're notoriously bad at looking after ourselves.
Yes, that's true.
And self-care, and having good boundaries when it comes to work and home life and things like that. So during my role as a professional development manager in a London local authority, or across a few London local authorities, in commissioning training, what kind of piqued my interest in this was I was commissioning training for our cohort of newly qualified social workers, and there were proposals that were coming through, and there were 5 key days that they were doing all sorts of different things, which are kind of like the core skills that new social workers would need. And it was an optional 6th day, and it was optional, and it was all about well-being.
Oh, wow.
And looking after oneself and resilience. And I was like,
wow,
how is that optional? No. No.
Yeah.
And I completely went off on a rant, gave some feedback and said that, what message are we telling people? That you need to put yourself last? It's not okay. It's really, and the job is absolutely rewarding, absolutely great. And we get to meet I'm children's and family social worker, so amazing work that we do with the families where they're able to really thrive and develop so that they don't need us anymore is amazing. It's also really challenging. As you know, we experience secondary vicarious, that's the word, trauma all the time. So we need to learn how to look after ourselves, because it's not okay. That's just the work with the clients that are sharing their stories with us, in which we want to be able to help them. And then you have on the other side, all of the demands, the timescales, the KPIs, you need to get your visits recorded, all of those things, which are absolutely important, but it does put pressure on individual social workers to be able to do everything. So in going back to your question, I realise that I'm kind of going off on a tangent.
No, absolutely not, because I also think that, as you're speaking, I'm thinking, well, why do we place so much less importance on self-care and well-being? I was talking to somebody this morning who is a supervisor, and I mean, she's currently struggling with this issue as well. And I was sort of saying, well, we were sort of saying, in a way, if you don't model that for the people you're supervising, it has all kinds of ramifications for the people they're working with as well. But in of itself, what about you, your family, your nearest and dearest, and so on? Is it right that your work takes so much of you that you have nothing left for them?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so many people that social workers I'm now speaking to in obtaining information for the books and tips, tricks and all of that. So many people, like I had a discussion with a lady who was saying her children, kind of jokingly, but truth in jest, would say things like, "Oh, to be the child of a social worker." And that's kind of the way that they kind of have a bit of a giggle about it. But it is like, we're so focused on meeting the needs of the children and families who obviously and do need our help, and we do need to be very dedicated to it, but at the expense of ourselves, at the expense of our own families, to the point where I'm sure there's been occasions where social workers' families have also then gone into the system for whatever reason. So I do think there is something about us taking some dedicated time to look after them ourselves. And that's why I really wanted to write this book. Interestingly, there is, not that there isn't, but I have yet to find a book similar. I wanted to see if I could model it on something else, just to see what's in the system already. Can't find anything. There's some research. I saw some research pop up the other day that I was looking into. It was more about nurses, but it's the caring profession again. But there was comments that having self-care was egotistical, and I was like,
wow. So comments from people in the profession, surely. Yeah. Can't be.
So, oh no, I can't look after myself. It needs to be about the clients. Completely admirable. And I guess that's why we have the NHS system, right? And the way that it's just, people have just been selfless in managing us through these past few years, especially with the pandemic and all of that, where people are continuing to go to work and, provide the healthcare that people have desperately needed during this time. But gosh, we're human as well. And we need to look after ourselves. So this book, I really want to be able to help. Well, it'll be the book. It'll also be some other bits that come out of it in terms of just helping social workers who are starting to set that as a priority from them when they begin. Because when the late Desmond Tutu passed away, one of his quotes kept on popping up for me, and it really resonated with me when he said, and it isn't a quote for quote, but it was pretty much saying we need to stop just pulling people out of the river. We need to know what's going on upstream and trying to work out what that is. So I just associated that with social workers. So coming new into the profession, let's get your boundaries and your self-care, your awareness of your self-care in place, so that you use that as a really good foundation as you're continuing your career, because too many of us are getting burnt out, too many of us are going off stress, too many of us are leaving the profession in droves. The great resignation is hitting social work crazily. Social workers is probably increased. It's always pretty high in some local authorities anyway. But I can just imagine with the amount of people that are leaving the profession, it's just been really unstable workforces, which is a challenge before the pandemic, let alone now. And I think there's just needs to be something that just helps us to look after ourselves first. Put the mask on yourself. Like I always give that analogy of when you go onto a plane and they say, put the mask on first and then help anybody around you. We need to do that 1,000,000%. And that includes being your first client first. In my book, I talk about being your first client. Doing some of that stuff, do your own chronology, do your own genogram, like have a look at what patterns there are within yourself and understanding what maybe your triggers are or what it is that is happening for you that may affect you while you're working, or if somebody else is talking about their traumas and it kind of triggers something in you, being aware of that and having the right systems and support in place so that you can then access the support so that you can work through those things. So definitely about being, and then increasing your self-awareness. If you're a person that likes to be in charge, if you're a person that likes to be in the background, just kind of knowing who you are as a human, your behavior and your communication styles can also help. So certainly in retrospect, I can look back and say, when I first started as a social worker, I still am a person that doesn't particularly like conflict. And I think when I was going into families and I was seeing things that was probably not great, I felt like what I should be doing is saying to them, your house is not okay, you should be doing this, and just being very direct and very straight to the point and no sugarcoating anything. And I don't know where that comes from. I just knew that in my head, that's what I should be doing. But that's just not me as an individual. So it felt like I would be very respectful. I was then saying, okay, well, maybe we need to think about this a bit more, and what can we do to support you? So in doing that, I actually felt like I was being a fluffy social worker because I wasn't going direct and saying you need to do this, 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 and this. I mean, then subsequent years later, I got introduced to systemic practice, and I was like, oh, I've been doing this.
That's right. You're sitting alongside. I suppose it's so important, really, I guess, to sort of stress that there are many ways, that many different approaches. I mean, yeah, I mean, I had my moments, particularly in social work leadership, where I could be direct. I didn't really like it, to be honest. And I much rather approach things in a kind of more conciliatory way, but sometimes it can't be helped. However, there are absolutely social work models that teach you how to do that whole kind of sitting alongside your service users well, because you always think to yourself, well, how would you like to be treated?
Absolutely.
So, and I know some people, enjoy the more directive approach. I personally don't think it's always very helpful, but then sometimes you're told that, yeah, you're probably being a bit too soft or a bit too this or a bit too that. But nevertheless, as you say, you've got to recognize what's within you in terms of how you communicate and how you conduct yourself and stuff. So you're putting a book together based on your experiences, based on some research, based on what you've seen, and hopefully that will be something that potentially a newly qualified social worker might find useful. But I would also suggest that some of us more experienced ones may also find it valuable as well, just to reconnect us.
I think it would definitely be great for new and aspiring social workers, as well as those social workers that want to just hit a reset button and be like, okay.
Yes, that's the word, reset. Yeah. Lovely. No. All right, well, we look forward to that. We won't put any pressure on you as to when it's going to be out. No doubt.
Written, so yeah.
So let us know when things start to begin to happen. So you one of the reasons, as I say, we you and I worked together, as I say, many years ago. We were in a sort of a community assessment outfit that where we used to go into families and work very, very closely, trying to help them to make change. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. But that was an interesting period. But then you went on to train and qualify, and you did your sort of frontline stuff, and you then moved into sort of training and professional development and so on. But now you're in the Caribbean.
Yeah.
So you tell us, girl. You tell us, how on earth did that happen? Why did it happen?
Sure. So I've always been a very ambitious person. So I don't want to say I jumped up the ranks, but I kind of did. I moved around a bit. I then went into management and moved local authorities a few times. And finally got to a senior manager post. I was a principal social worker, and there was parts of that role that I absolutely loved, and there was parts of that role that I was a bit like, what's this?
Yeah.
I don't get this. And it was an acting up post. I wasn't in there permanently, but it was at that point that I started to question whether or not I wanted to remain in the profession or not.
Right.
And it was more.
I was going to say, you can't just skirt over that one. You've got to tell us more about that.
Oh no,
because
absolutely,
I'm sure that will resonate with so many people. So come on, Nadine, tell us, what was that about?
Absolutely. So I'd been a team manager for a period of time, and this role came up. I was really excited. Didn't really understand what it was, but I thought, oh, this seems like a great opportunity for me. Went for the job, didn't think I would get it, absolutely got it. I was petrified when I got the phone call. I was ecstatic, completely ecstatic. And I called my friends and we went into the toilet and I literally screamed. I'm sure people outside heard. I literally screamed when I got this role. Then was dented because there was then comments that were like, oh, she only got it because she's Black.
Wow.
And I'm like, what? I've got to do all of this. I've got to work twice as hard yet again, prove myself in this role. Okay, here we go again. Fine. But this was the first time it was quite overtly said it and directly impacted myself. So that was a blow, like a huge blow. But I kind of just thought, okay, here we go again. Fine, let me just make it work. Like I need to just improve myself. And so I started this journey. It was an acting up post, and I was looking forward to the opportunity to be a bit more strategic. And the local authority were going through lots of changes anyway. So I guess I didn't have as many opportunities as I could have been afforded to kind of really get my teeth sunk into what the new expectations of me were in terms of going to the strategic part of the role. I'm a bit of a perfectionist. I don't like to fail. And so because I felt like I wasn't performing, I started to feel quite inadequate. The imposter syndrome was my best friend on my shoulder. And I felt literally like I was the little black girl in the room with all of these in these meetings. And I was like, what am I doing here? So I was also going through some personal stuff as well. So I was separating from my then husband. And it just felt like my life was falling apart a bit. And as I said, I'm very much a person that does not like to fail. And it just felt like things were just crumbling everywhere. So I just started to question, do I really want to do this? I then, very interestingly, went on a course, which I think everything's very timely. I went on a course that is run by the Staff College called Bali, which is the Black and Asian Leadership Initiative.
Oh, right. I've heard of them. Yep.
Amazing. It was really powerful being in a room and speaking candidly about experiences and thinking about how we go on to the next steps if you wanted to go on to be, for example, a director, and how you can navigate your career to get there. So I think that was a big eye-opener for me, because I think in that point I realized I didn't want to be a DCS.
Okay.
Probably not the purpose of the course, but I really didn't. I was like, no, it's not for me.
But to pause a second there, that's useful though, because sometimes doing these things helps you to clarify your own direction. And it's absolutely fine if that's not really where you wanted to go, but you probably needed to do that to establish that. 100%. Okay, cool.
Because I was always that person was just going up and felt like going up in the career was a ladder.
Yeah, that's what you needed to do. Yeah,
it's a ladder, and you just had to keep going up in order to increase your experience, your knowledge, your skills, your income. Really, that's just what you had to do. So at that point, it was a bit. It was great, but it was also like, okay, so if not that, then what? I knew the three things that I took from that course is that I didn't want to be a DCS. I needed to start journaling, which was one of the things that they recommended, is to writing a professional journal.
Yes.
I needed to start reading, because I wasn't doing anything to kind of feed my brain at the moment at that time. So I was like, I need to start doing something. So that then started to make me think, okay, so if not this, then what? And then the pandemic kind of started to kick in. I went off sick for a period of time, probably not even the second time. As I said, I'm a bit of a perfectionist. I want to always do well. So going off sick for me as an individual is huge. The first time I went off sick is because when I was stressed out. In a previous local authority, I went off for about 2 weeks, and even then I was stressed because I was off. And this time I was off for about 6 weeks, and it was a good time for me to just rethink about what my relationship with social work was, because I certainly had fallen out of love with social work completely at that point. And I just needed to understand what it was that I needed to do next. So there was something about the role I was in. I absolutely loved the professional development part of the PSW role. And so I thought, okay, let me go and do that. So I found another role. It was a professional development role, and absolutely loved it. And this is where I was more so introduced, well, not even introduced, I was able to hone my skills in terms of supporting new social workers, experienced social workers doing practice education, etc. And just really thinking about influencing the development of newbies that are coming into the profession, and also feeling quite protective of them. I feel like I've almost gone from protecting children and families, and now I'm like, protect the social work Like, where's your voice? And I remember, just as a side issue, attending one of the focus groups for the social care review, and absolutely going off on a rant about we need KPIs for social worker wellbeing, but that's a whole different conversation. Maybe if you have a KPI, it might be seen as important, but anyway. So
I look forward to the day.
Wouldn't it be great?
Because it seems as though that's probably the only way it's going to happen effectively. Yeah, unfortunately.
Our biggest context is, I want to say, is Ofsted is huge. So if that's there, then yeah, I think it will be more on the agenda to make sure that social workers are okay. So anyways, during 2020, I went through this process of really understanding myself. I trained as a coach, and I was introduced to a DISC assessment, which tells people about how they communicate and how they behave. Got really interested in that. Started coaching people on that. My psychology degree, first degree, started kind of kicking in and being really interested.
Making sense, yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, so behavior and communication, and people can either really be magnetic and really click, or they can just absolutely repel each other based on how they are as a human. Whether you're a person that likes to be very direct, if you're a person that likes to be a bit more indirect, whether you are very fast moving, slow moving, whichever. So it was really fascinating to me. So I did a lot of coaching of people online, obviously, because it was in the pandemic. A lot of people in the States, actually, speak from the States and Canada, and also in the UK. So that was great. And then I did some very intentional work about what I wanted my life to look like. And then in doing that, I thought, my life doesn't look like London.
Right.
So
oh, wow.
When the opportunity came up to move to St. Lucia, my dad is St. Lucian, born.
I never knew that. I actually didn't know that. And when we worked together, we probably didn't ever talk about that. But because Dominica is so close to St. Lucia and it's kind of sisters in that sense, I'm sure we would have had a few little jokes about that. But yeah, so I was kind of, I didn't know you. Yeah, how St. Lucian have to make, cool.
So I'd got my citizenship here by descent about 10 years ago or so.
Yeah.
And an opportunity came for me to move. I was working as an agency worker at the time, doing professional development. They were searching for permanent worker. So I said, okay, well, I'm happy to do the role while you continue. I'll just do it virtually from the sun. So that's how I then was able to move over here. I finished those roles late last year.
Okay.
Subsequently, I have been doing some coaching for social workers, and just now really thinking about intentionally developing a business around this. Writing the book came up probably towards the beginning of the year, and it's just kind of evolved into different things at times, but now I have the first draft written.
Nice.
And going on from that, I will then be wanting people. I think the book is more like a leverage to helping people with intention. So be that I deliver training, help people to understand themselves, increase their self-awareness, have a real intentional routine about looking after themselves, and things like that, having boundaries, and ultimately helping social workers to be happy, which seems really strange when you're just always stressed. But I will be happy social workers. I don't even know, it feels strange saying, we're happy social worker. It feels like,
well, I mean, I do think, and again, I'm just reflecting on this conversation I had with this woman this morning, and her thing about being really clear on boundaries. I think that's a good starting point. It's always helped me whenever and what we were saying was that there's a necessity to kind of review your situation regularly. So I liked what you said, because interestingly, you journaled, and I suggested to this woman that she needed to keep a professional journal, because that's one of the ways, I guess, you can track how you're feeling in any given week, whether things are getting out of control, or just to get a sense of your own self-awareness. It's a good tool to use from that perspective. So, I mean, what's the next step in terms of the book? You've completed a first draft. What happens after that, and how do you want this thing to be taken forward?
I mean, ultimately, the initial idea was for this book to go into like a pack for new social workers that are starting. So we used to, well, it's actually an idea I stole from one of my old colleagues. So she's a ASYE coordinator in a local authority, and she kind of put a little pack together, which was almost like of a little essentials and a welcome pack for the social workers who were starting. So in there was like a tea bag. It was during the pandemic, so it was like a tea bag and some other little bits that I thought was really cute for welcoming a new person into the local authority. And I thought, actually, what resources could go into something like that? And I thought, oh, a book. So that's when I started looking for books, guides for newly qualified social workers. I think I came up with 3, bought all 3 of them, and thought, no, this isn't quite what I would want to go into this. And that's why I was like, create something. But I think ultimately I would love for every single new and aspiring social worker to have this on their desk. And then also for somebody to be like, oh, can I borrow that? Who's a bit more experienced, that can say, I need to hit a reset button. Let me just reconnect with myself as a human and then think about what my next steps are. So, and that doesn't necessarily mean, forgive me for saying this, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to stay in social work as well. It may be that, or statutory social work, should I say, because it may be then that you go off into a different guise. You may go off into being independent. You may go and continue to be a DCS or a CEO or, of wherever. But it may also be something that you say, actually, I want to go into floristry. It's something completely different.
Well, yeah, I mean, sometimes that's what people need, and you've had people who leave and then they return, there are all kinds of machinations in terms of your career, or just leave it completely because you've given all that you can. I mean, I'm not adverse to that. I think for me personally, I've had many times when I've reached that crossroads, and thankfully I kind of managed to scrape myself back because I've gone in a slightly different direction. But I don't think it's beyond the realms of what people are able to do. We're free agents if in that respect. One of the things I wanted to touch back on, though, is what you'd said about, because I'm sort of doing a lot of work with some colleagues around diversity and inclusion. And, that painful comment that you shared with us around colleagues or peers saying that you got the role because you're Black. I mean, how has that left you in terms of scars, if you like?
I think that was the first time that I had overtly experienced anything like that. Where I've worked previously, I want to say my face fit. Yeah. So I was very much encouraged to progress in my career and move forward. So, and it's not to say that my face didn't fit in it was a new local authority. So it wasn't even, I don't even think it was about me personally as Nadine Boyne, although I did take it as such. At first.
As you would.
Absolutely. But there was something that I just thought, it burned. I can't say any other word.
And I think it's important to stress that, because one of the things, I guess, that many of us who are Black carry with us is the fear that others will say that we got the role because we are Black. And then you made reference to that imposter syndrome being around. But it is very, very painful. How did you reconcile that whole experience?
I guess it was, how did I reconcile? I'm just trying to think, have I reconciled it?
Well, yeah, I mean, because those things, they're scarring.
Absolutely, absolutely. So there was definitely a thing of me that I thought, right, I need to prove that I then can do this role. I was going through so much, I was going through so much stuff personally that was a challenge anyway, which then impacted my ability to do the job. we had new staff and new senior managers attend, and they were then questioning me, and I felt inadequate. And then I just felt like I went down this little spiral, to the point, and that's the point when I went off sick, because I was just like, I felt like it was just it was just compounding, lots of different things then compounded on top of me. And I just thought, you know what, I can't, I need to take some time out.
Yeah.
So it was tough. And always having that, always having that notion of, you know, you have to always be twice as good, try twice as hard, just because you're Black, because you're female, and all of those other kind of things that intersect in terms of all of those discriminations that then that compound against us. Yes. But yeah, it was brutal. And at first I was just like, oh, well, I'll prove it to you. And then because I wasn't then proving it, it was just then like, oh my gosh, is it only because I was Black that I got it? And I started listening to it and thinking, oh my gosh, maybe it's true. And why did they give me the job? It was a dark time, put it that way. It was a dark time. And I think there is definitely something about helping people that are helping social workers that are wherever you are in the system to feel confident in themselves, and understand what their additionality is, their intersectionality is, and what that means for them. And the book does touch on that as well, in terms of thinking about those things intentionally. But yeah, it was tough. It was incredibly tough. And another thing that I really want to be able to influence is, for the new social workers that are coming into the profession, to not only give the voice and the confidence to Black and global majority social workers to be able to navigate their careers to the top table seats, to the DCSs, the CEOs and all of that, if that's what they choose to do, and not out of fear or feeling that you're not good enough, that you can't get there. So definitely supporting those, but then also supporting our white allies, the new white social workers to make space. So if we're starting for them in the beginning, we have the Black social workers feeling like, right, this is possible. And then in their cohort, and it's all about inclusivity, right? So in their cohort, they're the white social workers that traditionally have been overrepresented in those top table seats. They are working together from the very beginning to help everybody to get there. And it's not about giving everybody the same, because equality doesn't work. It's about equity. Some people need different types of support in order to get to the same place. But certainly making space for some of those global majority social workers who want to get there, if that's what they so.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, I guess what we have to also recognize is that, you know, that's asking a lot. And I guess, you know, communication has to keep on, because if people are saying that they are allies and they are interested in anti-oppressive practice and they're interested in equity and so on, this is what it really means. Absolutely. You know what I mean? This is absolutely what it really means.
Absolutely.
I mean, for you, what has helped you? What have you found helpful in your development, your progression and so on? I mean, I know that you said that you began to sort of read more. I should imagine you didn't have enough time previously, but you know what I mean? What sorts of things have helped you?
I guess just in the early part of my career was moving around. So I was in a local authority that I ended up being in for about 10 years, but it was because I was able to move to different areas. So the transfer processes were great there. So I was able to go into the MASH, I was able to be in the front door, I was able to go into the parenting assessment team, I was able to go into the safeguarding team, I was able to go down to the quality assurance team. So it meant that I was there for a really long time, but I got so much different pockets of experience, and probably only spent the maximum of about 3 years in each one of those. Okay. So I would definitely, and I tell students that I'm supporting, newly qualified social workers I'm supporting and assessing, that when you are starting in your career, think about what your next steps are and where you may want to transfer to within a local authority or elsewhere. Think about where else you want to pick up different knowledge and skills from being in a different part of the system. If you're remaining in statutory social work, because it's not the be all and end all. So even if you're if you're then going to go out into the voluntary sector or education or wherever else. So certainly moving around in the first few years of my career definitely helped. Now I would say I took about a 6-month period, but again, it was during the pandemic, everything was shut down and everybody was forced to be in their houses. For me, that was fine. I quite like being in my house. I know for other people, it may be a bit like, I can't wait to be able to be around people again, but I was quite happy at home.
Yeah.
But what it did enable me to do is to cook. I gave myself a cocoon for about it was exactly 6 months. And I just really understood myself. I did courses about designing my life. I honed my craft in terms of doing the coaching stuff, really understanding the different aspects of the DISC assessment and how that related to social work.
Yes.
And well, initially I didn't even wanted to be a coach for social workers. I just wanted to get out of the profession completely, and it just kept on showing up for me. So I'm back here quite happily.
Sure.
But certainly just doing some intentional work. What that looks like now as we're coming out of the pandemic, as people are returning back to the office and things like that, I can imagine it will return to being quite a struggle because we're very time poor. So I think there is definitely something about being very intentional about dedicating time to your personal development. And in a way that's going to be helpful to you. So if you're in a local authority and you want to get a coach, do that, because most, if not all, local authorities will have that ability for you to have a coach for a period of time, usually about 6 months. I think most people have them for. They can help you and guide you through that process of thinking intentionally about both professionally and personal stuff as well. And there are some of the qualifying courses that provide coaching as standard as part of that. So I think it should be something that is considered for all new social workers coming into the profession, that they are provided with this element of coaching. Those coming through the traditional route that don't necessarily have access to the other bits that like the fast track courses provide. So I think coaching is definitely something that would be helpful.
It's certainly a model that's on the up and up. I mean, I do that for various organizations, and people are far more receptive to that now, because it's different from in-work supervision, which tries to be all things to all people, but the priority is always getting the work done. But this other kind of coaching, which addresses people's sort of personal development, how they feel about the work they're doing, potentially even saving them from leaving because they're getting they're getting nourished in this other space. I see that happening far more. So that's good to hear. And I mean, all of us need it. So it's good to hear that was helpful for you. All right. So tell us a bit about St. Lucia. What else you doing there?
So see my big smile.
I noticed the shift in energy in the conversation.
It's literally one of the best decisions that I've made. Just being around people that look like me and palm trees is absolutely amazing. So while I'm still working remotely to the UK, and actually even some of the stuff in the States, I'm doing some bits there as well, around coaching, around training now. I'm one of the facilitators for the Bali course now, which is absolutely immense for me, because it was just so powerful for me. So to be able to impact other people's journeys in a similar way is going to be great. So I'm delivering some training and developing some training. So that's all great, writing the book. But I've also wanted to really connect with the community that I serve also. So I found an organisation that works with women and girls, around supporting them through anything that they make, it's a feminist group. So supporting women and girls in all guises, in terms of information, in terms of health, well-being, counselling, mentoring, coaching, and just supporting the future leaders, the future solution leaders.
Nice.
I joined them late last year, and now just got involved with a project that is in collaboration with the Prince's Trust. So we're developing a mentoring program, and to help some of the girls that are in the care system, and also have been involved in criminal justice matters, to give them some specific mentoring around goal development and things like that. So I'm incredibly excited to be part of the team that is doing that, which is just so far up my street. It's just unreal. It's just like, oh, look at that.
That's fantastic, Nadine. That's fantastic. I'm sure they're gobbling you up, definitely.
Yeah, so it's nice to be giving back to the community as well. I don't speak Creole, which is annoying, but I mean, everybody speaks English on the island, so that's fine. But it's a little bit annoying that I don't speak Creole, and I kind of side-eye my dad every time I think about it. But it is.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, neither do I. But that was more to do with the place in Dominica where my parents come from. One of two villages where they actually don't speak Creole. They speak Pidgin English, and they speak a kind of English. I can only liken it to people from Sierra Leone.
Yes, I was about to say.
And Nigeria and Ghana. When those people speak their other dialect, it reminds me so much of how my parents and my extended family sound when they're speaking. So yeah, not everyone speaks Creole, but if you can say a few phrases and absolutely ensure that they can't sell you without you knowing, you should be all right. You should be all right.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's been great connecting.
No, it sounds really exciting. So in terms of, I mean, none of us have a crystal ball, but you've spoken a lot throughout this throughout our chat about intentionality. So with that hat on, as far as we can kind of try to make sense of our futures. What do you see your future being?
My future, and this will sound really bold, but it is what it is, because I do.
Yeah, just say it like it is, girl.
I want to be able to, there's a few things, few kind of prongs to my bow, prongs to my fork, or whatever it's called.
I understand you.
But just go up and down. But I want to be able to impact the next generation of global majority DCSs. So I want to work with them now. So
I'm sorry, what do you call it?
DCSs, the next directors. The global.
Oh, DCSs. Oh, them. All right. Okay. Sorry.
I want to work with, in some way, the next generation of DCSs as they start their careers now. So that's kind of my long-term vision.
Yes.
I want to be able to influence or be the named person around coaching and social workers as humans, and be doing lots of international work with regards to that. So that's kind of my big vision for the book, and then also just kind of being able to influence the profession. I would love a KPI to be about social workers in Ofsted.
Well, that's not unreasonable. That's not unreasonable.
I know the review is published. I started reading parts of it, so we'll see what comes out of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would love to be able to be working from anywhere in the world. I don't think I will necessarily always be in St. Lucia. I think I may be in different parts of the world at different times. I will be back in London at some point also. But I like the idea of being able to do what I absolutely love from anywhere, and be able to positively influence the careers of social workers so that they are able to do it for longer, they're happier, and they are
healthier.
They continue to find it rewarding, because as much as it's challenging, it's an awesome profession. It's awesome. And I did, as I said, I fell out of love. I'm fully back in love. But I do think it's also because I've come out of the mode of working for survival.
Yeah.
And I'm now feeling like I'm working in if we think about Maslow, I'm certainly working in zone of excellence, more zone of self-actualization, because I feel like I'm working now, as opposed to just for survival.
Yeah.
And it's just about helping people to navigate their way up that. And I'm all for that.
Lovely. That's absolutely beautiful. Okay, Nadine. Well, we're about to wrap up now, and I don't know if there are any sort of final messages that you want to leave us with. I absolutely fully expect to hear when your book is published, so I've got no problems with that. Is there anything that you want to sort of leave us with as we finish up?
Sure. I would just like to say anybody who wants to hear more, wants to be interviewed for the book, but either because you're a new student or a new social worker, or a student that wants to hear a bit more, then connect with me. So I'm on LinkedIn, which is just my name, Nadine Boyne. I am also on Instagram under my company, which I'm currently developing, which is Social Work Discovery, all one word. And there is also a page on LinkedIn about that, but I am populating it at the moment, so it looks a bit bare. But definitely connect with me. I will start to produce some content that will help social workers to think about who they are as humans, and start to do some of this work, even if you don't have the book. It will take a little while in terms of being through editors and all of that kind of stuff. So I we'll start to release some content with regards to that, and ensure that people can then start to think about these things. So that's just, I would say, connect with me. If you want to have any conversations, if you need some coaching, you want to speak to your learning and development, definitely do that. If you want to have me personally, just get in contact. We can see what we can do.
Lovely.
But definitely just connect with me, and I am excited to be able to influence your journey, whether you're new or whether you are hitting a reset button in social work.
Thank you. So thank you so much, Nadine, for joining us today. And I will get back to you with regards to getting the exact links for your Instagram, your social work discovery company, and your LinkedIn. So I can put those in the show notes. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yes,
It's been a blast, and speak to you soon.
All right, take care.